Good morning. This is Haley Solomon with the North Carolina Housing Coalition. Thank you for joining us this morning for our housing call. And without further ado, I will turn it over first to our Executive Director, Samuel Gunter.
Thank you, Haley, and good morning, everyone. I hope all of you are well and enjoyed a little bit of warm weather over the weekend and are appropriately bundled up for the very cold week that we are having. We've got a lot to get through today, but I wanted to jump on the call briefly and point your attention to a sign-on letter we have going. Yesterday, we put out a general sign-on letter with kind of two purposes. One is to call on our congressional delegation to ensure that housing funding that has already been appropriated flows to the folks that it is intended to flow to. And the second is we've got a deadline coming up on March 14th for the end of the continuing resolution where funding runs out, and making sure that, again, our congressional delegation prioritizes housing investments in whatever budget negotiations are happening between now and March. This is incredibly timely, and in the less than 24 hours that this sign-on letter has gone live, we've got 150 organizations from across North Carolina signed on. If you have not seen that, it will be in the call notes. You can see it on our website. You can see it on our social media. You should have it in your inbox as well. But if you haven't yet, please sign on to that letter to support housing resources getting to the places they were intended to go, and to ensure that in future funding decisions that housing investments are prioritized federally. There is a lot happening. Things are moving quickly. The landscape is shifting pretty quickly, and we want to make sure that we have the largest group of organizations from the broadest reach of the state saying with one voice that these are important, that we got to prioritize this. So again, find it wherever you can find it, in the call notes, on our website, on our social media, in your inbox through Housing Matters, and sign your organization on. One of the other things that you're going to be asked to do when you sign on to this letter is to name what counties you work in. So if you do work in multiple counties, please list multiple counties in that field. Again, I am very much a proponent in advocacy of as many messengers as possible is better. So if I had to choose between a congressperson getting 15 calls from 15 different people or one letter with 15 sign-ons, I would choose 15 calls from 15 different people. But right now, we're doing all of the above. So please add your organization's name, what counties you do work in, and also be thinking, if you have not already, who on your staff, who in your organization, is it you, is it a board member, is it another staff person, is going to be kind of the designated advocacy person. Because now is a time when we are going to have to be doing more than what we normally do in terms of making the case for these investments as we come into this new Congress, and especially look ahead to the first recess. And so if you haven't thought of already who is going to be kind of your internal point person who is going to liaise with us as we try and make the case to our federal delegation to continue to prioritize housing investments and how impactful they are for communities across North Carolina. So recapping again, find the sign-on letter, sign your organization on, because there is a lot of advocacy happening right now, and it is incredibly timely and very important. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our Policy Director, Stephanie Watkins-Cruz, to walk you through the housing news for the week. Have a great day.
All right, good morning, everyone. Thanks, Samuel. I'm going to go ahead, and before we jump into housing news, just want to let folks know, if you were on the call last week, we ran into some connection issues with freeconferencecall.com. That does happen. You got to love technology when it does that. So that did impact the audio quality of the housing call, especially if you're listening to it live. So we went ahead and we've re-recorded it. If you want to check out that re-recording, you can go to the call notes, go to our website, and you look at podcasts. That recording with a much clearer audio quality, as well as our call notes, can be found there. We want to also make sure that you save the date for our fall conference. So September 30th through October 1st, The 2025 North Carolina Affordable Housing Conference will be taking place at the Raleigh Convention Center. So remember, this is a conference that is presented to you by the North Carolina Housing Coalition, the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency, and Centric Community Capital. This has always been one of my favorite conferences. It often feels like a reunion, but we also have a lot of great engaging breakout sessions, insightful speakers, and just a great opportunity over those few days to network and connect with affordable housing professionals from across North Carolina and even the region, because our spread is pretty big. Samuel already mentioned our federal sign-on letter. Those will be going out. That's already gone out to you. It will be posted on our social media as well as in our Housing Matters. Going to state and local updates, going to go ahead and really, again, mark this continuing theme that we're paying attention to in disaster recovery. So at the General Assembly, there are two meetings that we're paying attention to this week in particular. One has already happened. The second is the House Select Committee on Helene Recovery. That's happening today at 2 p.m. at the General Assembly. They're going to reconvene to discuss and consider different amendments and topics related to HB 47, which is the Disaster Recovery Act of 2025, Part 1. So it's the first sort of relief package of 2025. In our call notes, we're going to include these two visuals from our folks at Carolina Forward that just have two good visuals comparing what the requested amount was from Governor Stein, and then so far what the legislature's plan has been. Joshua Stein, our governor, has requested $1.1 billion in his proposal. And so far, HB 47 has about $500 million in that proposal. So there is a difference. There is in the legislature plan about $150 million for home repairs and reconstruction, another $150 million for natural restoration projects for agriculture, another $100 million for private roads and bridges repair, particularly because of really the massive scale of damage that was done to roads and bridges across the region. There are a lot of repairs that don't really fit into the natural FEMA structure, so this develops a program for that. $20 million for debris removal, which has been an increasing and emphasized issue in a lot of the disaster recovery conversations. And $10 million for volunteer organizations that are active in disaster recovery, or VOAD. Unfortunately, there is not any money so far allocated towards rent, mortgage, and utility assistance, small business recovery grants, or affordable housing construction. And so this is something that we are really watching very closely, and that we recommend, if you have relationships with representatives in the West, that you make sure that you communicate to them the need for rental assistance, for mortgage and utility assistance, for these small business recovery grants, and for really much more significant investment in the housing overall. So far, there has been about 137 bills filed this legislative session already. There have been less than 12 that really connect to housing or one of our policy agenda areas. A lot of you have been asking about our bill tracker for the year, and so your calls have been answered. We have updated and created a different bill tracker for the 2025-2026 legislative session, and that link will be in the call notes, and we'll also have it up on our website shortly so that you can kind of go through and see what we're watching. We'll be watching it based on a lot of different factors, not only including our policy agenda and those policy priority areas of funding for housing, disaster recovery, improved coordination, protection for renters and homeowners, land use and development, but we'll also be looking at how is this impacting communities across North Carolina. Is it urgent? Do we have the capacity to move it? How many people we have to activate, and so on and so forth. There are a lot of different local news and updates. One that is growing in terms of its attention, and something that is never quite far out of our brain, something that's important that I think practitioners are still working to figure out is a piece on chapelboro.com. 97.9 did a good piece identifying the importance of protecting manufactured housing. And so in this piece, they featured Orange County, and Orange County is home to over 100 mobile home parks. And this actually represents a good chunk of their naturally occurring affordable housing. Featured on this interview is State Senator Greg Meyer, as well as Richard Turlington with Habitat for Humanity of Orange County, and Julia Sindor with Orange County Justice United. And they talk about the different challenges and efforts that are happening in Orange County to preserve manufactured housing in the area. But many of you know that this is something that is affecting many counties, not just in the Triangle, but both state and nationwide. So a good listen if you are interested in that. The City of Raleigh recently launched their Bringing Neighbors Home pilot program. This particular pilot seeks to address unsheltered homelessness through a solutions-based approach that includes providing direct housing assistance and resources to over 40 households. The Housing Committee on the New Hanover County and City of Wilmington Workforce Housing Advisory has really named what they've seen in terms of cost of living and how that's changed in their area. They've seen an 85% increase in prices since 2018. They recently gave their annual report on the state of housing in their region and talked through their goals related to affordable housing, funding, policy programs, and education. In terms of events and resources, I want to lift up one in particular that feels very timely. The Southern Economic Advancement Project on February 13th, so that's Thursday, at 1 p.m. we'll be having a webinar titled Uncharted, Navigating the New Federal Landscape. So this webinar in particular is really timely because it will have guest speakers that have some of the most up-to-date or top-line information regarding current questions and concerns for nonprofits or organizations that handle federal funds. The experts are going to talk about advocacy, but also talk about federal data resources, funding, as well as personnel. And there'll be some room for discussion, so make sure you bring your questions and you think about what resources you're concerned about and any other logistical questions that you might have there. Reports and resources. The North Carolina Newsline released a statewide report talking about North Carolina facing a significant housing inventory gap. This is inspired by the North Carolina Chamber Foundation's recent housing supply gap analysis and economic impact report. I'm really excited that this organization released this. I was able to go to an event early in January hosted by the Chamber in partnership with the Realtors as well. And it was really affirming to see how concerned these organizations are and many of the practitioners within these networks are about housing in our state, and how there's beginning to be an even larger groundswell of interest and concern around the housing gap that we have in North Carolina and how that impacts multiple areas of life, from health to education and business and economic resiliency. So this is a report that we'll have linked in the call notes for you, as well as the Newsline piece. And I definitely recommend that you look through it. Hopefully we can bring somebody on from one of those organizations to talk about this report in the future. And with that, I will let you all go. Don't forget to sign on to our federal sign-on letter to protect federal resources and federal housing investments in North Carolina. Make sure that you save the date for our fall conference, September 30th through October 1st. And as always, please don't hesitate to reach out, and we'll talk to you next time.